The ice water didn't just soak my blouse. It seeped into my skin, a freezing shock that mirrored the sudden void in my chest. I sat frozen, the scent of roast beef and rosemary still clinging to the air, while the dinner table became a courtroom where I had already been found guilty of existing. Brett leaned back in his chair, his lip curled in a smirk that mirrored his father's. He didn't look like a 24-year-old man. He looked like a spoiled child who had just discovered the limits of his power. "You're just the live-in help, Tara," Brett said. "Know your place." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. I looked at Ray. My husband. The man I had spent 7 years lifting up, shielding from his own failures and providing for without a second thought. He didn't look horrified. He didn't look surprised. He looked bored. "Brett, that was unnecessary," I said. My voice sounded distant, as if it were coming from someone else. "Apologize. Now." Ray shifted in his seat, the mahogany chair creaking under his weight. He didn't look at me. He looked at his son with a glimmer of pride. "He's just telling you the truth, Tara," Ray said. I blinked. The water was dripping from my chin onto the white linen tablecloth, leaving dark, jagged stains. "The truth?" I asked. He just threw a drink in my face. Ray stood up. The movement was sudden and violent. He didn't reach for a napkin to help me. He didn't offer a hand. He pointed a finger toward the hallway, his voice rising to a roar that shook the crystal glasses. "If you don't like it, leave. This isn't your home." The room went still. Gloria, Ray's sister, cleared her throat and looked at her plate. Leah, the youngest of the siblings, shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. They had always viewed me as a convenience, a paycheck with a pulse. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the wine glass. I didn't even cry. I simply looked at Ray and saw a stranger. I saw a man who had spent nearly a decade eating the bread I bought and sleeping under a roof I paid for, all while harboring a resentment that had finally curdled into hatred. "I see," I said. "Do you?" Ray sneered. "You think your little corporate job makes you the boss of this family? You're a guest here. A guest who has overstayed her welcome." I stood up slowly. The wet fabric of my shirt clung to my back, cold and heavy. I didn't look at Brett. I didn't look at the siblings. I looked only at the man I had mistakenly loved. "I'll be out of your way," I said. I walked out of the dining room. I heard Brett chuckle. I heard Ray mutter something about finally putting her in her place. I went upstairs to the bedroom. I didn't hesitate. I pulled my suitcase from the top shelf of the closet. I folded my clothes with a precision that felt like a prayer. I gathered my passport, my birth certificate, and the black leather folder containing the deed to the house. As I zipped the suitcase, I heard them laughing downstairs. The sound drifted through the vents. The celebratory noise of people who believe they have won a war they didn't even realize they were fighting. I walked back downstairs. Ray was leaning against the kitchen counter, sipping a scotch. "Leaving already?" he asked. "I thought you'd try to beg." "I don't beg for things I already own," I replied. He laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Right. What? Your fancy shoes? Get out, Tara. We're having dessert." I walked out the front door and closed it behind me. I didn't slam it. A slam is an emotional response. I simply closed it, locking the world of the Jenkins family outside of my life. The drive to my sister's guest house was a blur of streetlights and rain. I spent the night in a room that smelled of lavender and old books, staring at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. I waited. I knew the calendar. I knew the dates. The next morning the sun rose in a pale, sickly yellow. At 8 a.m. my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I didn't answer. 8:05 a.m. Another call. 8:10 a.m. A text. "Tara, where are you? Why isn't the coffee made? This is ridiculous." I ignored it. Then came the voice messages. The first one was Ray, his voice still arrogant, though tinged with a hint of confusion. "Look, the joke is over. Come back and we can talk about how you're going to make it up to Brett. Just get your ass home." The second one arrived an hour later. The tone had shifted. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a frantic, high-pitched edge. "Tara, I just got an email from the bank. There's some issue with the mortgage payment. And the property tax notice just came in the mail. Why is it saying the payment is overdue?" I sat up in bed and smiled. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was the cold, hard smile of a ledger being balanced. I called him. "Tara." "Thank God," Ray sobbed. The sound was pathetic. He wasn't shouting anymore. He was whimpering. Listen, there's been a mistake. The bank is sending these notices, and the insurance company says the policy is about to lapse. I tried to log into the account, but I don't have the password. You handle all that, right? Just fix it. Please. I'm not the live-in help, Ray, I said. There was a pause on the other end. What are you talking about? I was just stressed. Brett was just being a kid. We can move past this. You told me to leave because this wasn't my home, I reminded him. I took your advice. I left. But the house. Ray yelled. The mortgage is $10,000 a month. The taxes are astronomical. I can't pay this, Tara. I can't even cover the insurance. You're the only one who pays for everything. Exactly, I said. I am the only one. You can't do this, he gasped. We're married. We are, I agreed. Which is why my lawyer will be sending you the divorce papers by noon. And since the house was purchased with my inheritance and held solely in my name, which you signed a waiver for years ago, you have exactly 72 hours to vacate the premises. The silence on the line was absolute. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the sudden realization that the floor beneath his feet was a trapdoor I had just opened. You can't kick me out, he whispered. Where will Brett go? Where will I go? I don't know, I said. Maybe you can find a place that fits your place. I hung up. For the next 3 days my phone became a battlefield. First came the anger. Ray sent a barrage of texts calling me heartless, a monster and a traitor. He claimed I had manipulated him into a lifestyle he couldn't afford. Then came the family. Gloria called me, her voice dripping with a fake, sugary concern. Tara, dear, surely we can settle this as a family? Ray is devastated. He's a broken man. You can't just throw him and Brett onto the street. It's unchristian. Funny how the family didn't find me very Christian when I was serving roast beef while being insulted, I replied. Now don't be petty, Gloria snapped, her mask slipping. You have money. Ray has nothing. You have a moral obligation to ensure he's taken care of. My moral obligation ended when the water hit my face, I said. Goodbye, Gloria. The final stage was the begging. By the second day Ray was calling me from a different number, his voice trembling. Tara, please. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Brett is sorry too. He's crying in his room. We'll do anything. Just don't take the house. I can't go back to renting a studio apartment. I can't do it. The house is already listed, I told him. The agent is coming by tomorrow for photos. I suggest you pack your things. And Brett's. You're selling it? He wailed. But it's the family home. It's my asset, I corrected him. And you're an intruder. The day of the eviction was gray and drizzling. I didn't go back myself. I hired a security firm to oversee the move. I sat in my car a block away, watching through the windshield as Ray and Brett hauled their suitcases onto the curb. Brett looked different. The smirk was gone. He looked small, his shoulders slumped, staring at the house he had claimed was his birthright. Ray looked aged, his face haggard, clutching a cardboard box of old records and clothes. As they stood there in the rain, the real estate agent pulled up. She stepped out of her car, glancing at the two men with a look of mild distaste. Are these the tenants? She asked. They're the former residents, I said, stepping out of the car. Ray turned to me. He tried to step forward, his eyes red-rimmed. Tara, please. Just one more chance. We can go to therapy. I'll make it up to you. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the desperation, the fear, and the sudden crushing weight of reality. But beneath that, I still saw the man who had stood by while his son assaulted me. I saw the man who had told me I was nothing more than a servant in my own life. The thing about knowing your place, Ray, I said, my voice steady and clear, is that once you're shown where it is, you can't just pretend you forgot. I turned my back on him and walked toward the agent. Let's go inside, I told her. I want to make sure the place is spotless before the open house. The following months were the quietest of my life. The house sold quickly. A buyer loved the architecture and didn't care about the ghosts of the Jenkins family. I took the proceeds and invested them into a trust for myself. I moved into a smaller, sun-drenched condo by the coast, a place where the only voice I heard in the mornings was the sound of the tide. I heard through the grapevine that Ray had moved into a cramped apartment with Brett. Apparently, the two of them spent most of their time arguing over who was responsible for their downfall. Brett had to get a job at a warehouse, a far cry from the life of leisure he had envisioned. One evening about 6 months later I received a letter. It was from Ray. No longer shouting, no longer begging. Just a short note. I never realized how much you did for us until the lights went out. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The silence was the only answer he deserved. I spent that evening on my balcony, watching the orange sun dip below the horizon. I thought about the woman I had been, the one who absorbed insults and paid the bills in hopes that love would eventually grow from gratitude. I realized then that gratitude is not love. Gratitude is a transaction. Love is respect. I took a sip of my wine, the glass cool in my hand. I felt a lightness in my chest that I hadn't known in 7 years. It wasn't the thrill of revenge, though that had been a pleasant appetizer. It was the profound, humming peace of self-preservation. I had spent years building a foundation for a man who wanted to knock me off the pedestal. In the end, I didn't lose a husband or a home. I simply stopped paying for a lie. I walked back inside and closed the sliding glass door.